Welcome back to Reddit Talks. Our team carefully creates and hand edits every story to help improve your mindset through storytelling. All of our content is 100% original and human-led. Enjoy the video.
When my mother-in-law smiled and said, "Eat this soup, it's good for you," I trusted her. But my 10-year-old son saw something from hiding that made him run to me shaking. When my mother-in-law handed me the bowl with that warm, grandmotherly smile and said, "Eat this soup, dear, it's good for you," I lifted the spoon without hesitation. The broth smelled like rosemary and thyme, steam curling up in the afternoon light streaming through our kitchen window. Then my 10-year-old son burst through the doorway, his face drained of color, and grabbed my wrist so hard the spoon clattered against the bowl's edge. "Mom," he whispered, his voice cracking with terror, "please don't eat it." My name is Jessica Hartman. I'm 34 years old, and until that moment on a Tuesday in October, I thought the worst thing about my mother-in-law was her passive-aggressive comments about my housekeeping. I was wrong. I'd been married to Ben for 12 years. We met in college. He was pre-med, I was getting my teaching degree, and we built what I thought was a normal, happy life. 2 kids, Oliver, who was 10, and Emma, who was 7. A 3-bedroom ranch in a suburb where people still wave to each other. Ben worked long hours as a cardiologist, and I taught 4th grade at Riverside Elementary. His mother, Diane, had always been complicated. She was 62, impeccably dressed, with steel gray hair she wore in a tight bun, and the kind of smile that never quite reached her eyes. She'd made it clear from the beginning that I wasn't what she'd envisioned for her son. I came from a working-class family. My father was a mechanic, my mother a nurse. Diane's family had money, old money, the kind that came with expectations, but she'd been civil, cold, but civil, until about 3 months ago, when something shifted. She started calling more often, stopping by unannounced with casseroles and baked goods, offering to babysit. She'd show up with groceries, insisting she was just trying to help, since Ben worked such long hours and I was so busy with teaching. Ben thought it was sweet. "She's finally warming up to you," he said. "Give her a chance." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that after 12 years of icy politeness, Diane had decided to be the grandmother my kids deserved, and the mother-in-law I'd always hoped for. That Tuesday, she'd called in the morning. "I'm making soup," she said. "Your favorite, chicken and wild rice. I'll bring it by around 3. I didn't remember ever telling her it was my favorite, but I said thank you. She arrived exactly at 3, carrying a large ceramic pot wrapped in a kitchen towel. Ben was at the hospital. Emma was at a friend's house for a play date. Oliver was upstairs playing video games, or so I thought. Diane set the pot on the stove, ladled a generous portion into one of our bowls, and placed it in front of me at the kitchen table. She'd even brought fresh bread. "You work so hard," she said, her voice syrupy. "You need to take better care of yourself." I'd just sat down, just lifted the spoon to my lips, when Oliver appeared. Not walked, appeared, like he'd materialized from thin air. His face was sheet white. His hands were shaking. He grabbed my wrist, and the terror in his eyes made my blood run cold. "Mom," he whispered, "please don't eat it." Diane's smile didn't falter. "Oliver, honey, don't interrupt. Your mother needs to eat." But Oliver didn't let go. His fingers dug into my wrist. "I saw her," he said, his voice barely audible. "I was hiding for the game. I wanted to jump out and scare you, but I saw her, Mom. She put something in it." The kitchen went silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. I looked at Diane. Her smile was still there, but it had frozen, like a mask. "Oliver," she said, her voice tight, "you're being silly." "I'm not," he insisted, tears welling up. "She took something out of her a little packet. She opened it and poured it in when you weren't looking. Then she stirred really fast and put the packet back in hers." My stomach dropped. "Diane," I said slowly, setting the spoon down. "What did you put in the soup?" Her eyes flickered, just for a second, but I saw it. "Nothing," she said. "He's making it up. Children have such active imaginations." "Then you won't mind if I don't eat it," I said. She reached for the bowl. "Don't be ridiculous. I spent all morning—" I pulled it away from her. "What was in the packet, Diane?" Her face changed. The warmth evaporated. What was left was something sharp and cold. "You're being paranoid," she said. "Show me your purse." "Excuse me?" "If there's nothing to hide, show me your purse." For a moment, she didn't move. Then she stood up, grabbed her purse from the counter, and clutched it to her chest. "I'm not going to be interrogated in my own son's house." "Then leave," I said, standing up, "and take the soup with you." Diane's face flushed red. "You're turning my grandson against me. You're poisoning his mind." The irony of her word choice wasn't lost on me. "Oliver," I said, not taking my eyes off Diane, "go upstairs. Now." He hesitated. "Now." He ran. Diane and I stood there, the bowl of soup between us like evidence in a crime scene. "You need help," she said, her voice low. "You're clearly unstable. Ben needs to know how you're behaving." She left before I could respond, taking the pot of soup but leaving the single bowl sitting on the table like a threat. I stood there for a long time, staring at it. Then I did something that probably saved my life. I poured it into a mason jar, sealed it tight, and put it in the back of the refrigerator. Chapter 2. The Pattern. That night, when Ben came home, I told him everything. He looked exhausted, still in his scrubs, his stethoscope hanging around his neck like a weight. "Jess," he said slowly, "my mother brought you soup." Oliver thought he saw something. That's not evidence of anything. He said she put something in it. He's 10. He was playing a game. He probably saw her add salt or pepper and his imagination ran wild. Then why did she grab her purse like that? Why did she refuse to show me? Because you accused her of what exactly? Poisoning you? That's insane. The word hit me like a slap. I'm not insane. I didn't say you were. But Jess, think about what you're suggesting. My mother, the woman who raised surprised me. Why would she? I don't know, I said, but Oliver was terrified. Have you ever seen him like that? Ben rubbed his face. I'll talk to her, okay? I'll ask her about it. But Jess, you can't accuse people of— I'm not accusing, I'm being careful, he sighed. I'll talk to her. He called Diane that night. I stood in the hallway listening. Mom, what happened today? Yeah, Jess told me. Okay. Oliver said, what? No, I'm sure he didn't mean. Mom, calm down. I know you would never. Okay? I love you too. When he hung up, he looked at me like I'd committed a crime. She's devastated, he said. She thinks you hate her. What did she say about the packet? She said she added some herbs from her garden. That's it. She was trying to make it special. Herbs from her garden, I repeated. Yes, herbs, not poison. But she'd refused to show me. She'd grabbed her purse and left. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed replaying Oliver's face, the terror in his eyes, the way Diane's smile had frozen when he spoke. At 2:17 a.m., I got up and went to Oliver's room. He was awake, staring at the ceiling. Mom, can you tell me exactly what you saw? I asked, sitting on the edge of his bed. He sat up. I was hiding in the pantry, you know, for the game, and I saw Grandma reach into her purse. She pulled out this little white packet. It was small, like sugar or something, but it didn't have any writing on it. She looked around, like to make sure no one was watching. Then she opened it and poured it into the soup. Then she stirred it really fast, like she wanted it to mix in. Then she put the packet back in her purse and wiped the spoon on a towel. Every word was detailed, specific. This wasn't imagination. Why didn't you come out right away? I was scared, he whispered. I didn't know what it was. I thought maybe it was medicine or something. But then she smiled and told you to eat, and I knew something was wrong. I hugged him. You did the right thing. You protected me. Is Dad mad at me? No, baby. Dad's just confused, but I'm not. I believe you. I should have gone back to bed. Instead, I went downstairs, pulled the mason jar from the refrigerator, and stared at it under the kitchen light. The soup looked normal. Chicken, wild rice, vegetables, but something was in it that shouldn't be. I needed proof. Chapter 3, the lab. The next morning, I called in sick to work, the first time I'd done that in 3 years. I dropped Emma at school, kept Oliver home, and drove 40 minutes to the nearest private lab. The woman at the front desk looked at me like I was crazy when I set the mason jar on the counter. I need this tested, I said. Tested for what? I don't know. Everything. Anything that shouldn't be in homemade soup. She blinked. Ma'am, we typically need a doctor's referral for— how much does it cost without one? For a full toxicology screen, about $800. I pulled out my credit card. The technician who took the sample was a young guy named Marcus Chen, late 20s, with kind eyes and careful hands. Can I ask what this is about? He said. I think someone put something in my food, I said quietly. My son saw it happen, but no one believes us. Marcus looked at the jar, then at me. How long will the results take? 48 to 72 hours. We'll call you. I thanked him and left. On the drive home, Oliver was quiet. Mom, he said finally. Yeah, buddy? What if they don't find anything? What if I was wrong? I reached over and squeezed his hand. Then we'll know. But either way, I believe you. When we got home, Ben's car was in the driveway. He wasn't supposed to be home until 7. I walked in to find him standing in the kitchen, arms crossed, face tight with anger. Where were you? I had to run an errand. What kind of errand requires you to keep Oliver out of school and disappear for 3 hours? I went to get the soup tested. The silence was thick. You did what? I took it to a lab. They're running a toxicology screen. Ben's face went red. You're insane. You're actually insane. Stop saying that. What else do you want me to say? You took my mother's soup to a lab because our 10-year-old son thinks he saw her add something to it? Yes. Do you understand how this looks? Do you understand what you're doing to this family? I'm protecting it. You're destroying it. The next 48 hours were hell. Ben barely spoke to me. Diane called him 6 times a day, crying about how I'd attacked her. Ben's sister Carol even called to tell me I was unhinged and needed professional help, but Oliver stayed close to me, and I held on to that. On Friday afternoon, my phone rang. Marcus Chen from the lab. Mrs. Hartman, we have your results. My heart stopped. And you were right to bring this in. We found traces of diphenhydramine, that's Benadryl, at a concentration of approximately 300 milligrams. We also found a benzodiazepine, specifically lorazepam, at around 4 milligrams. These are both sedatives. In combination, especially at these doses, they would cause severe drowsiness, confusion, and potentially respiratory depression. The room spun. Are you sure? Yes, ma'am. I'm emailing you the full report now. Mrs. Hartman, at these levels, if you'd consumed the full bowl, you would have needed medical attention, possibly hospitalization. I thanked him and hung up. Then I called the police. Chapter 4, Detective Morrison. Detective Laura Morrison was 46 years old, 12 years with the county sheriff's department, and she sat across from me in our living room with a notepad and the kind of expression that said she'd seen worse, but not by much. Mrs. Hartman, walk me through what happened. I told her everything. Oliver's account, Diane's refusal to show her purse, the lab results. Morrison looked at the toxicology report on her tablet, her jaw tightening. This is attempted poisoning, she said. At these levels, you could have died. My husband doesn't believe me. Where is your husband now? At work. He thinks I'm overreacting. Morrison looked at Oliver, who was sitting beside me, pale and quiet. Oliver, can you tell me what you saw? He repeated his story. Every detail the same as before. Morrison nodded slowly. Mrs. Hartman, I'm going to be honest with you. Cases like this are difficult. Family dynamics, especially with in-laws, complicate things. But the lab results don't lie. I'm opening an investigation. What does that mean? It means I'm going to interview your mother-in-law. I'm going to request a warrant to search her home and her medical records. And I'm going to recommend that you file for a protective order. A protective order against my husband's mother? Yes, if she's willing to poison you once, she'll try again. When Ben came home that night, Morrison was still there. His face went white when he saw the detective. Ben Hartman? Morrison asked. Yes. What's going on? Your wife filed a police report. We have evidence that your mother attempted to poison her. Ben looked at me like I'd betrayed him. This is insane. Morrison handed him the toxicology report. This is science. Diphenhydramine and lorazepam in lethal combination. Your son witnessed her tampering with the food. Your wife did the right thing. Ben read the report. His hands started shaking. This has to be a mistake. It's not, Morrison said. I need your mother's contact information. I'll be questioning her tomorrow. After Morrison left, Ben and I sat in the kitchen in silence. Why would she do this? He whispered. I don't know. She's my mother. I know. He looked at me, eyes red. If this is real, if she really tried to, I don't know what to do. You believe me now? He nodded slowly. The lab results. Oliver's story. I don't want to believe it, but I can't ignore it. That night, for the first time in days, he held me while I cried. Chapter 5. The search warrant. Detective Morrison executed a search warrant on Diane's house 3 days later. What they found made national news. In Diane's medicine cabinet, bottles of diphenhydramine and lorazepam, both prescribed under false names she'd obtained through a friend who worked at a compounding pharmacy. In her bedroom drawer, a handwritten journal detailing every meal she'd prepared for me over the past 3 months, with dosage notes beside each entry. September 12th, casserole, 50 milligrams diphenhydramine. She seemed tired. September 24th, brownies, 75 milligrams diphenhydramine. She complained of dizziness. October 8th, soup, 300 milligrams diphenhydramine plus 4 milligrams lorazepam. This should work. She'd been dosing me for months. Every headache, every bout of unexplained fatigue, every time I'd felt dizzy or foggy, it had been her. Morrison showed me the journal in a sealed evidence bag. Mrs. Hartman, this is a clear pattern of premeditated poisoning. Your mother-in-law has been systematically drugging you for at least 3 months. Why? I whispered. Morrison flipped to the last page of the journal. Ben deserves better. She's not good enough for him. Never was. If she's gone, he can start over. Find someone worthy. My mother-in-law had been trying to kill me because she thought I wasn't good enough for her son. Diane was arrested on charges of attempted murder, assault with a deadly weapon, and conspiracy. The arraignment was surreal. She stood in the courtroom in an orange jumpsuit, her steel gray hair loose around her shoulders, looking smaller and older than I'd ever seen her. When the judge read the charges, she looked directly at me. I did it for Ben, she said. She was ruining his life. The judge ordered her held without bail. Chapter 6. The aftermath. The trial took 7 months. The evidence was overwhelming. The journal, the toxicology reports, Oliver's testimony, the pharmacy records showing Diane had been obtaining prescription medications under fraudulent names. Her defense attorney tried to claim diminished capacity, arguing that Diane had been suffering from a delusional disorder. But the prosecution, led by Assistant District Attorney Rachel Ortiz, a sharp woman in her 50s who'd built her career on family violence cases, destroyed that argument with the journal entries. This wasn't delusion, Ortiz said in her closing statement. This was cold, calculated murder. She documented every dose. She escalated carefully. She waited for the perfect moment. This was premeditation at its most chilling. The jury deliberated for 2 hours, guilty on all counts. Diane was sentenced to 25 years in state prison. When the judge read the sentence, I felt Ben's hand tighten around mine. He'd testified for the prosecution against his own mother. It had broken something in him that I wasn't sure would ever heal. Carol, Ben's sister, never spoke to us again. She'd stood by Diane throughout the trial, insisting I'd set her up somehow, that the evidence was fabricated. But Ben knew the truth, and he'd chosen us. Epilogue. 2 years later. It's been 2 years since that Tuesday afternoon when Oliver saved my life. We moved to a different town. Ben transferred to a hospital 3 hours away, and I got a job teaching at a new school. We needed distance from Diane's house, from the memories, from the people who still looked at us like we destroyed a family instead of survived one. Oliver is 12 now. He sees a therapist once a week. Dr. Nina Castellanos has been helping him process the guilt he shouldn't feel but does. The guilt of being the one who saw, the one who spoke up, the one who sent his grandmother to prison. You were brave, I tell him, every day. You saved me. He's starting to believe it. Emma is 9, and she asks questions sometimes. Why doesn't Grandma Diane visit anymore? We tell her the truth, in age-appropriate pieces. Grandma made some very bad choices. She hurt people, and now she has to stay somewhere safe where she can't hurt anyone else. Ben struggles. Some days are better than others. He doesn't talk about Diane much, but I know he thinks about her. About how the woman who raised him, who taught him to ride a bike and helped him through med school, could also be someone capable of such calculated cruelty. I keep asking myself if there were signs, he said last week. Things I missed, ways I could have known. You couldn't have, I told him. She didn't show you what she showed me. Last month, Oliver came to me with a school project. They had to write about a personal hero. He wrote about himself. My hero is me, he wrote, because I was scared, but I did the right thing anyway. I saved my mom's life, and even though it was hard, I would do it again. His teacher gave him an A+. I framed it and hung it in his room. Sometimes I think about that afternoon, the bowl of soup, the frozen smile, the moment Oliver grabbed my wrist. If he'd been in his room, headphones on, absorbed in his game like most 10-year-olds would be, I'd be dead, or brain damaged, or in a coma. But he'd been hiding, playing a game, being a kid, and that accident of timing saved my life. Diane writes letters sometimes. The prison forwards them. Ben opens them, reads them, and burns them in the fireplace. He doesn't tell me what they say. I don't ask. Some betrayals are too deep wait for forgiveness. Some families are safe or broken, and sometimes the person who saves you isn't the adult you depend on. It's the child you're supposed to protect. If you made it this far, I need you to understand something. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. If your child tells you they saw something, believe them. Children don't have the life experience to fake the kind of fear Oliver felt that day. And if someone you love seems suddenly inexplicably kind after years of coldness, ask yourself why. Because danger doesn't always look like a stranger in the dark.